Welcome back, everyone. So today, we've got a seriously special explainer lined up for you. We are literally pulling back the curtain on the Cambridge AS and A-level accounting syllabus. Specifically, we're zooming right into the absolute core of the whole thing, the double entry system and the accounting equation. Think of this explainer as your ultimate insider's guide, your master coach playbook, if you will. We've gone ahead and compiled the raw data straight from the Cambridge Principal Examiner reports to build this out for you. So if you want to know exactly, and I mean exactly, how to lock down those top-tier marks, well, you are definitely in the right place. Now let's look at this quote. So the crucial point is this: you cannot avoid this topic. I mean, senior examiners themselves are highlighting that mastering the double entry system and the accounting equation is absolutely essential for your success. This isn't just some, niche topic that might show up on a random paper. It appears in literally every single examination series. The stakes here are high, guys. Getting a firm grip on this foundational material is completely non-negotiable if you're gunning for that top grade. But, that leads us to a pretty fascinating question, one that comes straight from the examiner's desk. Why do students consistently find interpreting complex accounting texts and data so incredibly hard? We all know the math part can be tricky, right? But examiners repeatedly point out that the struggle actually begins way before the calculator even comes out. It's the interpretation, it's the structuring of the answers that really trips candidates up. So how exactly do we fix that? Well, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. To get us there, we'll hit 1. Core principles, 2. Technical methodology, 3. Critical analysis, and finally 4. Examiner warnings. All right, jumping right into section 1, core accounting principles. Okay, so look at this. Successful candidates, the top scorers, they don't just memorize formulas. The assessment objectives actually target 3 distinct cognitive domains, kind of like a pie. You've got knowledge and understanding, analysis, and evaluation. To secure that A grade, you have to demonstrate your competence across all 3 of these slices. You simply can't just know the definitions. You really have to analyze the data and, crucially, evaluate the outcomes. And the syllabus makes it crystal clear. Top-performing students exhibit a deeply connected conceptual understanding. The academic benchmarks require solid logical reasoning, prioritizing analytical depth way over superficial breadth. So what does that actually mean for you in the exam hall? It means it's so much better to deeply and logically explain a few key impacts on the accounting equation rather than just listing a dozen vague, totally disconnected points. Your knowledge must be able to transfer easily to completely unfamiliar exam contexts. Moving right along to Section 2, Technical Methodology. Let's move to and see how this builds into a concept that, frankly, should be your absolute best friend in the exam: the method mark strategy. In Cambridge Accounting, you earn points based on demonstrating systematic processing and incredibly clear working. It is definitely not just about arriving at that final magic number. Think of accounting as a visible journey. If you make a tiny little arithmetic error early on, but your double entry process is theoretically sound and clearly shown, you can actually still rescue a massive portion of the marks. But to actually unlock those method marks, you need a standardized chronological process. Here are the 5 exact steps you need to follow. First, identify the key elements from whatever complex text or table they throw at you. Second, apply the relevant accounting principles. Third, execute your analysis with very clear, highly visible working. Fourth, verify your results against the core accounting equation. And fifth, present the whole thing in the proper format. Honestly, stick to this sequence every single time you practice, and it will become second nature. And speaking of that final step, the presentation of your information in accounting follows some really strict conventions. We're talking proper headings, correct terminology, appropriate formats, and crystal clear annotation. I really want to stress this to you guys. These are not just polite suggestions from the examiner. Adhering to these strict presentation conventions is exactly how you demonstrate the professional skills expected at the A-level standard. It shows the examiner you truly respect the discipline of accounting. All right, Section 3, Mastering Critical Analysis. And this brilliantly illustrates the real divide between average grades and top-tier marks. The top-scoring candidates demonstrate true evaluative thinking. They question the assumptions, they consider completely different perspectives, and they fiercely justify their decisions with cold, hard evidence. Lower-scoring candidates, however, tend to fall into the trap of that superficial breadth we talked about earlier, just stating facts without those crucial comparative connectives that build an actual coherent argument. So, when you're sitting there, asked to interpret data or compare different business scenarios, I want you to use this comparative analysis checklist. Look, identifying similarities is only half the battle. You absolutely must identify similarities and differences. You've got to use comparative connectives, words like however, in contrast, or conversely. You must support each point with specific evidence pulled straight from the source text. And finally, you have to draw strong conclusions about their relative importance. Don't just leave the data hanging out there. Tell the examiner what it actually means for the business. Let's get into Section 4, Top Examiner Warnings. Okay, let's dive into this because this is where marks just bleed away. Here are the top 3 mistakes that consistently appear in literally every single examination series. Mistake number 1, answers are just way too vague. Examiners don't want your general accounting philosophy, okay? They want specific details tied directly to the double entry in the prompt. Mistake number 2, candidates completely forget to check their format and presentation, just throwing away those easy professional skill marks. And mistake number 3, answers are not specific to the context given. If the question is about a massive manufacturing business, your evaluation better sound like it applies to a factory and not a small retail shop. Listen up, because here is a major examiner alert. Reports constantly reveal that candidates confuse key terminology. The mandate here from Cambridge is simple, but it's incredibly strict. You must clearly define your key terms before you start throwing them around in your extended written responses. Seriously, don't just assume the examiner knows that you know what capital expenditure or revenue reserve means. Actually, scratch that. Don't assume anything. Define it briefly first and then apply it. It proves you have that rock-solid foundational understanding. Now, before things get way too heavy here, let me give you a super quick memory hack to help lock all these complex rules into your brain. Try using a visual story method to encode your double entry concepts. Instead of just rotely memorizing debit increases assets, visualize a literal physical scale in your mind. Or make up a little story about the money physically moving from a bank account box and dropping into a delivery van box. Trust me, building these visual narratives makes recalling the accounting equation under immense exam pressure so much easier. Finally, strategy recap and next steps. Look, if you take nothing else away for your revision session today, remember these 3 pillars. Number 1, master all 3 cognitive domains. Don't just memorize the facts, make absolutely sure you can analyze and evaluate them. Number 2, deploy that 5-step method mark sequence so you actually earn credit for your systematic processing, even if your final math goes slightly off the rails. And number 3, avoid those major traps. Be highly specific, triple-check your formatting, and always anchor your answer in the provided context. So I'm going to leave you with this final provocative question. How are you going to deploy the examiner's playbook on your very next past paper? Remember, knowledge is really only power when it's actively applied. So grab a blank Cambridge exam, set a real timer, and intentionally practice that method mark strategy and the comparative checklist we covered today. Keep grinding through those past papers, and we'll see you in the next explainer.